Welcome to the Breathing and Alignment lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about why breathing is important and how we want to breathe for optimal success in core training, as well as pain relief in life. All right, this applies to everyone from those wanting to get a flat stomach to those that are in chronic pain. All right, so why is this important? Why is breathing important, and what does this actually mean? Okay, so first and foremost, when we think about breathing, I want you guys to think about a cylinder. Okay, and when we have a cylinder, we have two items that are lined up with one another, right? So in our case, we have our rib cage and we have our pelvis. Okay, so whether I'm standing, I'm walking, whatever, when these things are in line, okay, the rib cage and the pelvis, they're going to produce pressure so they can kind of stabilize all of these areas, all right? They move more efficiently as a unit. Whereas if I have a situation where I have an arch in my back, okay, a large arch, or my rib cage, and what actually is happening is my rib cage is thrust out in front of my pelvis is tipped back, okay, as we see in the case of so many situations. Instead of being able to breathe up and down, we can't get as much air in because literally these two spaces don't line up anymore, all right? And what this leads to are issues with pelvic floor issues, okay? So if we have the pelvic floor is a muscle that produces pressure in the pelvis, all right? Every time I take a breath in, the diaphragm descends and meets the pelvic floor. The two kind of push into one another to create pressure. If these two spaces are out of alignment, that never happens, okay? So we can be kegling, we can be doing all of these exercises to strengthen these muscles. But if we don't have pressure from above, then we're never going to produce the desired result, okay? And as a result, we get dysfunction. Same thing in back pain, okay? If I have an area that is severely out of alignment, my lumbar spine is going to be placed under more extension-based pressure, okay? Which eventually is going to result in strain, sprain, or some kind of injury. It's going to make us more likely to get hurt. If we're dealing with shoulder pain, okay, a back that is excessively arched is going to cut off my shoulders, okay? It changes the orientation of my shoulder socket. So instead of raising my arm up overhead from here, I raise my arm up overhead from here. I don't have as much range of motion. And so as a result, it's like taking two ends of a garden hose and squeezing them. Pressure starts to build up because we don't have as much of a canal to flow through. Okay, and that's the point, is that with all of this stuff, the first goal is to try to get us into alignment. And then once we're there, we want to train our diaphragm and our muscles to work within that alignment, okay? And that all begins with breathing. Okay, so when we talk about breathing, what I want to think about is when I breathe, air is going to come into my entire chest and kind of thorax wall, right? So as I breathe in, I get air into my chest, but I'm also going to get air into my ribs here, as well as into my back, all right? And a good illustration of that is a balloon. Okay, if I blow up a balloon, we have pressure on all sides of the balloon. Okay, so this would be what core stability is, right? Whereas if I only breathe through my chest, so my chest lifts excessively when I breathe, which is common when we're stressed out, then instead of having pressure everywhere, I get more pressure in one place, which would be my chest, and less pressure everywhere else. Okay, less pressure kind of down here in this area. So we're more likely to get issues with our back and the areas in which we pressurize, because if I don't have pressure down here or anywhere in particular, then our joints have to take more of the brunt of kind of the impact that we take from life. Okay, let's say I don't breathe into my ribs. Instead of kind of being wide like a balloon, suddenly it's more narrow like this. So again, I'm not producing pressure. Or if I don't get pressure into my back as well as my front, and that was the balloon, not me, we get this situation where one side is flat and it's kind of left to the, it's kind of left to the forces of nature. And this is oftentimes why we get a lot more pain in our back side, versus our front side. Okay, very rarely do I see somebody that comes in with like, chest pain. Shoulder pain, yes. Chest pain, no. So the first thing we want to do is learn to breathe within proper alignments, all right? So, and what we can do is, if you have this available to you, in order to kind of learn this or teach this, I can use my hands, and I'm going to demonstrate with that as well, but I'm just going to use this piece of TheraBand here. I'm just going to wrap it around my midsection a couple times. Just kind of helps me to get an understanding of what pressure feels like. So my goal, this thing is trying to like pull my waist in like a corset. So my goal is to breathe into this thing. Now, putting the feet up on a chair or a step is a really good way to start with this process because it's going to flex our back a little bit and allow us to get air kind of everywhere a little bit better, okay? So first thing I want you to do, I'm going to put your hands in your ribs. We're going to take a deep breath in through your nose. And as you breathe in, I want you to feel your ribs expanding up and out into your hands like a jellyfish, right? So when we breathe, our ribs come up and out when we inhale. And then as we exhale, they come down and in, okay? So we're going to mirror that process a little bit. So we're going to take a deep breath in and just feel these filling up. Again, you're going to feel your chest fill up, but importantly, I'm also feeling air get all the way around so you're pushing out in this band. And I'm going to exhale. I'm just guiding these down with my hands, guiding my ribs down with my hands. I also want you to kind of feel your back as we do this. As you breathe in, do you find that there's kind of a space between your back and the floor? One of our goals with our core training is to reduce or eliminate that space so we can keep these things in alignment, all right? So now what I want you to do, we're going to add a little bit to that. Now we're going to press our back into the ground slightly, okay? We're going to take another deep breath in, but this time we're going to exhale through the mouth as if we're blowing through a straw or we're blowing out fog. So I take a deep breath in. Keeping my back on the ground, I pause. I do the same thing. I take the deepest breath in as I can possible. I exhale. Even longer exhale, and I pause. This type of breathing cadence is the thing that's going to allow us to use our abs to kind of keep our body in line, but also allow our diaphragm to fully ascend and descend. If you find that you have trouble getting all your air in or all your air out, practicing this by just putting your feet up on a chair or breathing in the morning, practicing in various positions such as sitting and standing is really going to help to improve that and allow you to breathe more like a balloon, which is ultimately going to give you more success in all areas of improving your core, all right? So now our goal with our core training, when we're doing all of our exercises, our core exercises, a dead bug, for example, I want to be able to keep my back on the ground, stay tight, and breathe. So I take a deep breath in, and I exhale without my back arching up or thrusting. I don't want to lose my ribs off the ground here. And if you do find that that's the case in any of the exercises that we do, then they're too hard, all right? Now, our second topic would be our repositioning exercises, all right? Repositioning exercises basically just use our muscles to pull our bodies into the position that we want them to be in. In this case, we're going to use our hamstrings and our inner thighs to help to posteriorly tilt the pelvis, or just put it back in line, and then we'll use another drill to put the rib cage back in line, all right? So I'm just going to demonstrate proper form in these two. So what I want you to do is we're going to grab a yoga block or really anything that you can squeeze between your knees, okay? You can have it could be a book, a ball, it doesn't really matter. Now I want you to find a couple muscles here. So my toes are pointed back towards my head. I'm going to push my heels into the ground so I feel my hamstrings. I'm going to squeeze the block between my knees so I feel my inner thighs as well. I'm going to get my hips slightly off the ground, just a little bit. I should only be able to slide a credit card under my hips here. Now from this position, I'm going to take a deep breath in and exhale as I coached you on earlier. Pause for a second. We're just going to do 3 of these. Deep breath in, exhale, pause. Last one. Deep breath in, exhale, pause. All right. So we'd rest for a second, let everything relax. And typically in our program, we're going to do 2 sets of 5 breaths as the warm-up exercise. All right. So in this position, again, heels in the bench, hips slightly off the ground. Find my inner thighs as well by pushing into the block. Let's do 3 more breaths. Deep breath in. Pause. Deep breath in. Pause. Last one. Deep breath in. Pause. All right. Now our second exercise is what we call all fours breathing. So with all fours breathing, the last exercise worked on kind of putting the pelvis back and a little bit so it tilts under. So instead of arching my back, I drop my ribs down and get everything into alignment. Typically, this is what we want to do to make sure in standing positions as well that we're in the right place. So in this position, I want to round my back out as much as I possibly can, all right? Oftentimes in planks, we'll see people whose shoulder blades start to collapse in and kind of pull together. So I want you to do the opposite of that. I want you to push your shoulder blades apart as much as you possibly can. I'm going to take a deep breath in. And I'm trying to push away from the ground, getting air between my shoulder blades. I exhale. And I just hold that position. I don't let myself drop back down. Again, I take a deep breath in. I exhale. I hold that position. One more time. I take a deep breath in. I exhale. And I hold that position. And for us, what I want you to think about is doing that. What we're actually doing is pushing our rib cage back. And so in order to hold ourselves and teach our bodies to anchor ourselves in place, the same cueing remains true when we're doing an exercise that's similar to that, such as a plank. All right, so in a plank position, same thing. I'm pushing my shoulder blades apart as much as I can, as opposed to letting them drop together. All right, so when I'm holding in a plank position, I'm dropping my ribs under as opposed to letting them arch down, and I'm pushing my shoulder blades apart. I take a deep breath in, pushing my shoulder blades apart, exhale, and hold the position. How you know whether or not you're doing an exercise correctly is if you can stay in proper alignment. So if I'm attempting a plank, but I'm down here, and I'm like, well, I feel my abs, I'm not doing it right. So instead, what I might do is move to a level where, for example, I start up on an incline, I'm pushing my shoulder blades apart, because this area is a little bit less weight bearing than the floor. It's going to be easier for me. This is probably where I would want to start. I'm not saying this applies to you, but I'm saying that for somebody that can't hold their alignment in any particular position that I coach you in, I want you to make it easier using the variations that I teach you about. All right? So that's some food for thought. And really the last point is, when we're standing up, really the same rules apply. All right? So practicing breathing, deep breath in. You know, when we do start to experience periods of pain, stopping and, you know, practicing this breathing piece, as well as dropping your ribs down and coming back into alignment. It's not something that you're going to remember to do all the time. It's you know, perfect posture is impossible. Posture is always changing. But what we can do is we can use some of the same principles for gaining awareness. And so it's maybe if I can't lie down and reposition, instead, I just press my feet into the ground and dig back so I feel my hamstrings, push my knees together and round my back out a little bit, okay? Because I can feel those muscles working, they're doing the same thing to me, helping me to pull back into place. And so I do the same thing. I breathe in, exhale. I just knock out a couple of those in order to realign my body throughout the day. All right, so that's just some food for thought, a tutorial into breathing and how I want you to breathe during our exercises. Good luck with your program. I know you're going to have great results, and I look forward to seeing them.